Every October 3rd, cash appears in my mailbox addressed to the keeper of the garden. I finally found out what I bought with this house. 2 years ago, I 36M bought an old house at an estate auction. Previous owner was a woman named Edith, who died at 99 with no heirs. Great price. Huge overgrown backyard with a strange garden. 9 flowering trees planted in a rough circle, each with a small unmarked stone at its base. 1st October in the house, an envelope appeared in my mailbox. No stamp, hand-delivered. Addressed to the keeper of the garden. Inside, $200 in worn bills and a slip of paper reading only, for the 9th tree. Thank you. I figured it was a neighbor's odd tradition and pinned it to my fridge. The next October 3rd, 3 more envelopes, different handwriting on each. $200, $150, $500. Note saying for the 4th tree, for the 2nd, for all of them, from the Brower family. Nobody rang the bell. My doorbell cam caught only one delivery. An elderly man in a gray coat who touched the mailbox lid like it was a headstone, then left. I asked the oldest neighbor on the street about Edith. She went quiet, then said, "You should count the stones in that circle before you ask anyone anything." I said there were 9 trees, 9 stones. She shook her head. "Look again, under the ivy." That night I went out with a flashlight and pulled the ivy back along the circle's edge. There's a 10th stone, no tree. And unlike the others, this one has something carved on it. A single word in a language I didn't recognize, and beneath it, a date. October 3rd, 1943. I photographed the carved word and got it translated. It's Polish. It means waiting. That sent me to the County Historical Society, where a volunteer helped me dig into Edith's past. Here's what we found. Edith arrived in the U.S. in 1947, a war refugee. Before that, she'd been a teenager in occupied Poland. And in 1943, her family's farm was raided and informed the authorities that her parents were hiding people, 9 people, in a root cellar under the barn. The records get thin after that, but a 1980s oral history project in the archive had interviewed Edith once. She said only this on the recording, which the volunteer played for me while I sat there with my skin crawling. My mother had a signal. If the yard was safe, she hung washing on the line. That night, October the 3rd, I was supposed to hang the washing. I was 15. I fell asleep. The interviewer asks what happened to the 9. Long pause on the tape. Then, they ran when the trucks came. 8 made it to the tree line. 8, not 9. I went home and counted again. 9 trees, 9 unmarked stones. 1 carved stone with no tree. Marked waiting, dated the night of the raid. Then I did what I should have done a year ago. I saved the envelopes. This October, I checked the doorbell cam obsessively and got a clear plate off a car. The elderly man in the gray coat, a genealogist friend, traced the name for me. His family surname matches one that appears in the root cellar records. He's the grandson of one of the 8 who made it to the trees. And when I finally worked up the nerve to knock on his door, he opened it, looked at me for a moment, and said, "You're the new keeper. Come in. You'll want to know about the 9th tree, and why the 10th stone has no tree on it yet." His name is Alexander. He sat me down with tea and a photo album and told me the whole thing. The 9 trees aren't for the 9 who hid. They're for the 8 who escaped, plus 1 for Edith's mother, who was taken that night and never came home. The families of the survivors scattered across 3 countries after the war, but in 1961 one of them tracked Edith down in America. He expected to find peace. Instead, he found a woman drowning in guilt over a clothesline. So the families made her a deal. She would plant a tree for each of them and tend the garden. Every year on October 3rd, they would send money for its care. Not because the garden needed $200 a year, but because, in Alexander's words, a debt that is being paid cannot also be a sin. We invoiced her so she could stop punishing herself. She needed to owe us something smaller than a life. It worked for 60 years. The keeper tends the garden. The families pay their yearly visit or send their envelope. Everyone's grief has somewhere to go. Then he explained the 10th stone, the 9th person in that cellar, the one who didn't reach the trees, was a young man named Thomas. He wasn't caught, and he wasn't killed. He went back. He ran toward the farmhouse, drew the searchlights, and bought the other 8 the tree line. He was arrested and shipped east, and the trail ends there, no grave, no record of death, nothing. The families refused to plant his tree without proof. Planting it felt like burying him. So Edith carved 1 stone, waiting, and the rule, passed from keeper to keeper, is that the 10th tree gets planted only when someone finally learns what happened to Thomas. Here's the payoff, and I still get chills typing it. Archives from that region were digitized in batches over the last decade. Alexander is 84 and doesn't do databases. I do. It took me, for months, a translator, and 3 wrong Tomashes, but in a scanned Red Cross repatriation index, I found him. Thomas survived the camps. He was released in 1945 into a displaced persons facility, where the record lists his occupation, and I had to put my laptop down and walk around the block when I read it. Gardener. He lived until 1978 in a small town in France, under a slightly altered name. And through that name, we found his granddaughter, who told us her grandfather had planted a circle of 9 trees behind his house, and never once told anyone why. He'd been keeping a garden for them the whole time. 2 gardens, 1 grief, an ocean apart, each side assuming the other was lost. Last month, Alexander, the descendants of the 8, Thomas's granddaughter, and 1 very underqualified new keeper stood in my backyard and planted the 10th tree, grown from a cutting she brought from her grandfather's circle in France. We replaced the carved stone with a new one. It has his name, both of his names, and 1 word where waiting used to be, found.